Switching gears a bit to Bitcoin. So Grayscale Bitcoin Trust confirms it's going to convert, and it is 100% committed to converting its trust into an ETF. And this is a big deal. So currently, for the first time in years, GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, is at a negative premium. So essentially what that means is, for years, for most of the time GBTC has been available, it's always traded higher than the price of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin was $10,000, you could see in like May of 2020, GBTC was like $20,000. Or when Bitcoin was around 20,000, GBTC was at 40,000. So it's always had a higher premium, but now it has a negative premium. And the main causes for this has a lot to do with the fact that GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, is not an ETF and it's a trust. So the difference between a trust and an ETF is that Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was formed because the US, the SEC, didn't allow companies to create a Bitcoin ETF because of regulation issues. And Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, they had applied to become an ETF a couple years back, I believe in 2016, but then it didn't end up working out. So now they're applying again to change from a trust to an ETF. And the difference between a trust and an ETF is that, like a Bitcoin, the difference between both of them is that, like a Bitcoin ETF, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was formed as a way to let institutional investors get exposure to the price of Bitcoin without actually owning Bitcoin itself. So if you look at like ARK Invest and their ETFs, the only way they can have exposure to Bitcoin right now is by investing in GBTC. They can't invest directly in Bitcoin or Ethereum or cryptocurrencies because of regulatory issues. So the only way they can get exposure to Bitcoin is by investing in GBTC. However, the main drawback of Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is that, unlike an ETF, the trust doesn't allow investors to sell their shares to Grayscale and receive the underlying Bitcoin back. So if you own GBTC, you can't get the Bitcoin like that you're supposed to own, like that, the underlying Bitcoin that essentially it's backed by. So you can't do that. With an ETF, you would be able to do that. And so that's the main drawback of having an ETF versus a trust. So once they've currently applied to be an ETF, once this were to go through, we'd probably see the price of GBTC be much more in line with Bitcoin. It would probably be much more correlated to the price of Bitcoin, because now it has a negative premium, and that's not something we've seen in a while. It'd probably be much, much closer to the exact price of Bitcoin, which would be better for institutions in general, and would also keep Grayscale Bitcoin Trust as continuing to be the leader in the Bitcoin asset and Bitcoin space. So that would be a really good thing.